Good evening. Welcome to the regular scheduled February 4th, 2025 Nacogdoches City Council meeting. Kathleen, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Sure. Dear Lord, we come here today once again to thank you for our many blessings, to serve you and our neighbor, and once again to ask for your continued wisdom as we pray the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Okay, if you'll stand for the pledge, please.
Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item is open forum, and we have one for open forum, Miss Angie McKinley.
Hello, I'm not used to speaking into a mic. Is this okay? I'm here today for the property tax valuation process and my experience at the Nacogdoches Central Appraisal Office. And I am one of many who have these issues as I've been talking to other people, but I'm a person who's willing to come up here and be heard today. So thank you for listening. My story starts back in July. I submitted in person the property owner's notice of protest. And why did I do that? Because we had purchased the home in November, and when we got our new valuation, it had increased by over $39,000. So I went, took the form. I even submitted our closing statement when we purchased the property. I was told that that was not a good enough reason because it was a for sale by owner, and it did not represent fair market value, that it needed to be through an MLS listing or on Facebook. So I disagreed with that because I've sold properties in Houston as well as Nacogdoches, and fair market value is what a seller is willing to sell for and what a buyer is willing to accept. So it should have been decided then. We went through the whole wait game of hearing when a hearing date would be. Could never get a hearing date. We made multiple phone calls, still could not hear. So between July into December, in December 2024, my husband and I went to the new appraisal office on his day off and waited until we could be told a hearing date. And finally we got one for January. On the date of the hearing, I arrived early, yet waited 2 hours to be heard, because a man in front of me was representing over 20 properties. There's got to be a better way to schedule. Next, the comps during my hearing, the comps that were taken, not from sales that I know had recently occurred across the street. They were taken from properties outside of the city limits, as well as in neighborhoods that are nowhere close to my type of neighborhood. I won the hearing. Yet I was told that I would have to pay the full amount in tax on the so-called new uncorrected appraisal value, and I would be mailed a refund in several weeks. Nobody can give you a date how many weeks that means. I stuck with it. I finally confirmed with continuous asking what my new appraisal amount would be in the taxes on that. Now, they couldn't tell me with the homestead exemption, but I could at least get a little bit of a reduction. And I paid that amount, yet I was told to go talk to an appraiser at that time because they felt it still wasn't quite enough and it might be questionable. And he told me that it's always better to overpay than underpay. so that I don't get a penalty. So here are my questions. First of all, the fairness of the appraisals that are being done. I think that really needs to be assessed in this town. Next, that office needs to be courteous of taxpayers' time. I'm lucky I had 2 hours that day. There were a lot of retirees that were there. They had places to be, appointments to be. We don't all have 2 hours.
Angie, I'm sorry, it's a 3-minute limit.
Oh, did I? Okay,
So
sorry. I didn't get my most important
I
calls.
think we get it. I really do.
They're making money on my money.
We can't comment on it, but.
Okay, that's
but
fine.
I think everybody on this council heard you. You're not the only one
I
that
know
has
I'm not.
complained. We are
But-
not Central Appraisal District. We have a representative on this council that represents us through, well, here I am talking to you, so anyway.
You took
That's
her
fine.
3 minutes.
Just thank you for at least listening. I appreciate it very much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. All right, next item, consent agenda. Any items to be removed? Mr. Huckabee?
Mayor,
Yes?
could we remove item 5D, please?
Okay. Item 5E is asked to be removed. I'm sorry.
5D.
D. E is the minutes.
Did you say D?
D for the
Okay, D.
racial profiling.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you're removing 5D from the consent agenda. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the balance?
I so move.
Okay. Have a motion,
I'll second.
second. Okay. Now we'll bring,
All in favor, aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Now, go ahead if you want to talk about D. Yeah.
I'd just like for Chief Weems to bring that up and discuss it as we normally do. I know this is normally on the regular agenda, and so I just wanted to continue with having it in that format, if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Chief Williams, would you come up, please?
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm Chief Weems. I'm your Nacogdoches Police Department Chief of Police, and I am more than happy to go over the racial profiling with you. So, do we want to start by slide, or we want to take questions, or how do y'all want to?
Go ahead and do your presentation first.
Okay. A lot of this is, so this is required by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and we have to turn in an annual racial profiling report every year to show the data. This is called the Sandra Bland Act, and it goes by the U.S. Census Fair Roads Standards. And so this is the 2024 data. So, the total traffic stops for 2024 is 7,978. And as you can see they were broken up by, I'm sorry, I always forget that. They were broken up by city streets, U.S. highways, county roads, state highways, and private property. And it also tells you the race and ethnicity by percentage or by numbers. And so out of the 7,978, there were 39 Alaskan Native American Indian, 41 Asian Pacific Islanders, 2542 Black, 3526 for white, and 1830 for Hispanic. And out of that, the race was known 820 times, which is just a little over 10%, and not known 7,158 times, which is almost 90%. So that falls right in line, basically, with kind of like the numbers were last year, if y'all remember. Some of y'all were here. And then we'll break it down to gender by race and ethnicity for male and female, as you can see. And those numbers are totaled, the females 3124. Thank you, Jerry. And for males, 4854. So now we're getting into the reasons for stops. The violation of law on American Indian and Alaskan Native is 2, 0 Asian Pacific Islanders, 57 black, 101 for white, 40 for Hispanic, to total for 200. Pre-existing knowledge, the total was 41. And then we go to moving traffic violations. That would be 5,789, so that's the majority of what our stops were. Vehicle traffic violations, which was 1948. So we break it down by percentages on a search conducted. So was the search conducted? Well, 814 times there was a search conducted. And no search was conducted 7,164 times. And so you can see by the numbers or the percentages that your Asian Pacific Islanders were 0.25%, very low. Black was 48.77%, white 26.90%, and Hispanic 24.08%. So the reasons for the search. So we're getting deeper into it. Now, if you'll see across the top, it's got consent, it's got probable cause, contraband in plain view, and inventory, and then incident to arrest. So inventory is usually, that means after the person's arrested, they inventory the car, they might find contraband, right along with incident to arrest. So we'll get to consent and probable cause and plain view. So consent, we had 220 that consented to a search. For probable cause, this number is greater. We had 498. And then for plain view, 16. Plain view means it's right out in the open and the officer sees it and conducts the search. Probable cause means the same thing, but we're using senses to initiate the search. So we either smell it, see it, or what have you. So that's your highest number. So when we break that down, we had 1 Asian Pacific Islander. We had 303 for black. We had 94 for white and 100 for Hispanic, and so brings a total of 498. So the probable cause is what we're working on right now, because contraband discovered, as you can see for the next slide, is what this leads to. So it was searched, then we found contraband, and did it result in an arrest? So yes, it did. Twice for Asian Pacific Islander, 275 for black, 135 for white, and 128 for Hispanic. And did it result in an arrest? So as we go down, 109 times it did. 1 for Asian Pacific Islander, 51 black, 20 white, 37 for Hispanic. So your numbers here should coincide with your numbers on the reason for search. Probable cause, contraband, consent, which are the highest ones. And then we break it down to a description of the contraband. And so we, without giving you the numbers, you have drugs, currency, weapons. Hold on, one more. Drugs, currency, weapons, alcohol, stolen property, and other. And so you can see the totals for all of those. Drugs were your highest. Weapons were close to the second highest. Alcohol was 107. So we go back over to result of the stop. So we either gave a verbal warning, a written warning, a citation, written warning and an arrest, a citation and an arrest, and just an arrest. So that's the breakdown of the traffic stops and the results thereof. And then you can see the percentages as we break it down on each one of those. Without going into detail, you can break the percentage. I know you've already looked at it over the last week. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And let's see, arrest based on, that's the penal code, traffic law, city ordinance, and an outstanding warrant. So mainly for a penal code, 197 total. Traffic laws were 6, 0 city ordinances, and then outstanding warrants were 39. And a lot of times, on the outstanding warrants, we're not allowed to certain warrants we're not allowed to take to the jail, so we have to release them. So that's kind of why we have the low number there. The jail's full, so they've stopped a lot of that. And physical force used during the traffic stop. That would be 1 for black, 2 for white, and 1 for Hispanic, with a total of 4. And 1 resulted in injury to the suspect, and 1 resulted in bodily injury, or no bodily injury, and then 2 for bodily injury to both. And 0 racial profiling complaints. So, have we got any questions?
Like a great report to me. I mean, it happens, but
It kind of goes right along with the last year's report as far as the numbers. And I know the numbers are different right off the bat for the total, but they're right in line with what the percentages are. So that's kind of where we've been for the last 3 years.
Was the total up or down from last year?
Total was down,
Was it? Okay.
just by a little bit though.
What does the currency mean?
When we stop someone and they find a large amount of money
Okay.
that we've determined that could be used to go buy drugs down south or wherever they're headed,
Yeah.
it's basically interdiction.
So one of the things that impressed me last year, that you specifically talked about, and we actually had a long conversation about, was the percent of stops in which you actually knew the race beforehand, and it's only 10%,
Right.
which was very helpful to me in understanding what was going on. And then the other thing is the number of encounters you have that are further along the line because you could tell something was wrong with your senses. So that's what happens later on.
With the probable cause.
And I know we visited because I like to track it with the child welfare data.
Right.
And I think the proportionality is the same as it's been every year, and it tracks with child welfare and it tracks with other data. And the fact that we have no complaints is very helpful. I know comparable cities have complaints.
Right.
So thank you for the job you do.
Thank you.
as far as I'm concerned.
Do you consider this to go up for this year?
It's all for 2025.
Yes.
I don't foresee it, only because we're kind of doing the same thing as we train in the same manner. As far as when we make a traffic stop and what we're supposed to be looking for and odor of marijuana. I think if we stay on track with the proper training that we're doing now, I think we're going to stay on track as we've done in the last several years.
Okay.
How's it been working with UT, the new police at the university? Is that smooth?
It's helped. It's very helpful because their police chief and director at the time told them that they can get outside their jurisdiction and start preventing the people from coming into the campus that
I've noticed that.
are acting up. So they're starting to work Star. They're working North. They work Reggae and
College?
Solomon University and
Okay.
college.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we're seeing a lot more of them and hearing a lot more about them. So.
Okay, as far as your patrols, as far as the patrol, how is that set up for your regular shifts? Where your officers are placed, where they sit? The reason I'm saying what I'm saying is because what I'm seeing is officers sitting in places for traffic stops versus patrolling neighborhoods.
Okay, well, I know we're still patrolling neighborhoods. A lot of times when you see them sitting somewhere, they're usually writing a report that they just took, because they have to write them or type them in the car. And so if you're seeing them, they're probably just there for presence. And I'm not saying they're not doing traffic stops. What I am saying is they're taking reports after reports, and they're having to type them in the car, do all the work in the car. They're not, they can come back to the station on more difficult reports, but if you see them sitting out somewhere, they're more than likely doing two things at one time. They're trying to be visible, and they're also trying to finish their reports, if that answers your question.
It got me.
Okay.
Is there anything we can do to help you?
Add some more staffing,
Okay,
but I've said that over and over, so.
yeah.
I've never heard.
I know you have.
Okay. Mr. Garrigan, you requested to speak. And next will be Ms. Linnell.
Hello, I'm Tim Garrigan, and I'll try to be quick about this. I only had a few minutes to look over this report this year. I would like to point out that I think 2 years ago I spoke about the profiling report, and at that point the city admitted that it indicated they had a problem. I didn't hear any comment about that now. I heard the city saying everything's the same. Why is it they recognized there was a problem 2 years ago and they didn't today? I'm very curious about that. I'd love to hear somebody address it. I found several anomalies in this report that concern me. One is the numbers they use for their the population, the racial breakdown. I couldn't find that in the census data. I think they were undercounting. You know, they said there was about 50% white, and I believe the census data shows that it's 58.1%, which is almost 20% higher. That concerns me. The report indicates that the data was analyzed by this department, and I'm curious about who analyzed it for them, because this report does such a thorough job of dumbing down the statistics. It's really, it's an embarrassment for, especially me as a civil rights lawyer, to have been in this town for this long, and the city is still doing this stuff. Every year they have presented an analysis, they call it, a report on this, that ignores all of the important information. And now I'll get to my real point. I would like to know who it was that at the department that did the analysis that they're claiming. They used to buy a report from somebody, and I looked at those reports from different agencies.
You can ask the police chief, he can tell you.
Who did the analysis?
The analysis is, we have the Brazos system, which is electronic ticket riders, where we input all data electronically, and it runs. To see where we're at.
I would like to see that. I don't know. I mean, I wonder who decided what information is included in the report and why they didn't look.
That'd be the state of Texas.
The information is there to tell racial disparities. Nobody looked for that. Nobody has ever included that in the city's reports. In the past, it's always hovered around 300%. You're more likely to be searched as a matter of the officer's discretion. You're 3 times as likely to be searched if you're black instead of white. That has been true for a long time. They never include it in these reports. You can dig it out. And I looked at it for this year, and I found, and I'll be happy to go over this if anybody's interested. Okay, I found out of almost 8,000 stops, first of all, there were about 2,500 black people who were stopped, 3,500 white people who were stopped. So there are more whites being stopped than blacks. if you look at the number who were subject to a forcible search, force isn't always used, but the threat of force is there. 300, over 300 blacks were subject to a coercive search. Out of all the whites, there are about 1,000 more whites that were stopped. Only 94 of them were searched as a matter of discretion. That's huge. 450% this year. 450% more likely to be searched as a matter of the officer's discretion if you are black instead of white. Now, if that was reversed, if we white people were being searched 4.5 times as often as the black people, we'd have riots. There'd be buildings burning. Nobody would put up with that. I don't know why the city puts up with this, but they're doing it again. And I'd be happy. Anybody that was interested in talking to me about it, I'll be happy to show you where this report demonstrates, it substantiates 450% disparity.
I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Did you not pay attention when I said that you need to look at the probable cause? See, that's not figured in your yellow book here. Right there.
What?
I need to click it, please.
What are we looking at?
Was search conducted? If you look at it, 397 times it was conducted on black and 219 on white. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at probable cause.
Well, wait a minute. Were those all the searches, including the consent searches?
I'm breaking it down right here. Here's consent.
Well, I don't know
here's
why you
probable
brought up
cause.
those numbers. They're
Because I'm
not
trying to
relevant.
point out to you that 303 were probable cause.
Yes, that's where the
Probable
officer
cause.
has the discretion
That's
to
where-
conduct a search.
That's where he uses his senses.
Without, they don't have to go get a warrant. They get to do a search
Okay.
forcibly.
Hang on just a minute. Hang on just a
Okay.
minute. Tim, okay, I think that's good. We can sit here and we can argue back and forth all day long. You've had your say. Let's let Ms. Linnell talk.
Okay. And Chief, I would be happy to talk to you about this.
I'll go over this.
Hang on just a minute.
A lot of people are scared to go to your office.
Vicki?
Be scared to go to my office. I'm not scared to come in here. Thank you.
Let me get to Vicki first. She's the one that I guess we are now.
Hey,
I initially came to ask that this be removed from the consent agenda. I appreciate it. I think we've all seen how important it is for the community to see this report. We've always gotten to see it. And I want to encourage you to please continue to keep it a public report rather than put it on the consent agenda. I have three small things. Well, never mind. And then, another question, how do we get the data about what race is known before a stop?
I think he has that.
The officer, is it in any of the charts or?
No, the officer has to, we rely on the officer to tell us if he knew the race, how you stop, and that's how you get that number, 810, I think. So if it's zero, I would have trouble. 810, 10% for somewhere. And so that means we're relying on the trust of the officers to tell us that they knew the race. Thank you.
Okay, Brandy, come on.
It's okay, she answered.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions from the council? Scott, I want to thank you for your report. Huh? Chad, do you have any more questions?
I was just going to tell Chief Weems, thank you for presenting this to us, and I would make a motion that we approve the report as presented.
We don't,
We
we just accept it.
Accept it.
You know, ordinarily, I mean, last year, I hadn't been on this council that long, 2 years, but last year it was on the regular agenda. I don't know why it got put on the consent agenda. I have no idea. So anyway, it will be, going forward, if I have anything to do with it, it'll be on the regular agenda. Either that or Bridget can do it, one or the one or the other. So, but anyway, thank you very much, Scott, and we appreciate your work, your hard work for the department, and also your patrol officers very much. Thank you. Okay, now then. Okay, now we need, well, we don't, do we need a motion to pass that off of the consent agenda? I think we do, don't we? Because we pulled, I think Kathleen was. Right, but now we have to approve it, don't we?
No.
Okay. all right. Okay, all right. So it's already been, okay, done, okay. All right, next item, we'll go to regular agenda. Hang on just a minute. Now, what are we gonna do? Okay, yeah, okay. Discuss and, we're gonna move item E up first, because there's some little ones here that probably about time for their bedtime. And discuss and consider a donation from the Parks Advocacy League in the amount of $28,126 for park benches and picnic tables. Ms. Jessica.
My bedtime, too. He was talking about me. Mayor Council Jessica Sal, Community Services Director. I have a fun item for y'all today. The discuss and consider donation from the Parks Advocacy League. I'll do a quick introduction, and then we have some members here that would like to present y'all with a check and take a picture. So the Parks Advocacy League was founded in 2014, and since then they've been staunch supporters of the city of Nacogdoches. Their main goal, of course, is to improve parks throughout our city for our kiddos. Their first major project was doing our Splash the Doches splash pad over at Maroney Park. Once that was completed, they decided to do even more. They've been doing fundraisers. The big one, I'm gonna make sure I get the name right, was the Community Heroes Hoops basketball tournament. There we go. Have been doing that one for the past couple years. The idea was to raise money to replace the playground over at McCrimmon Park. With a great fortune we have here in Nacogdoches, we had a bond passed, and the entire intention in some of that parks money was to replace the playground at McCrimmon Park, and so now we can do some projects in tandem, and PAL is adding to that project. So the donation today, which is for $28,126, is for 3 covered benches, specifically asked for by our Parks Advocacy League and our Parks Advisory Board. 2 will be at McCrimmon Park, 1 at Ritchie Street, which badly needs some shade, and then 2 picnic tables at McCrimmon Park. We are very, very thankful for PAL's continued support of our city, of our parks, and very excited to see what else they will help us do here in Nacogdoches. So we do have a few members from PAL that are here that would like to present y'all with a check, and we'd like to take some pictures if that's allowable. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have, because I know we do have to make a motion to adopt this, or to accept this.
You want to go ahead and make the motion? I'll make the motion, we accept or adopt it.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
And we have a few members. Let me grab my phone, and if any of y'all would like to come down.
They want to come up here?
Y'all like to?
Yeah, that's cute.
We've got southwest and southeast toward parks.
Great.
Why the kids hold the gavel?
Are we standing up, I guess?
I know. He'll hop in your seat. He was like, look at him rocking in his chair.
You want to hold a stick?
We move these.
Yeah, we may have to move.
Yeah. Because you won't see the little ones.
Come in there, Fred.
Good job. Hold up the certificate.
All right.
All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was a lot more fun.
We could work too
Okay,
hard there.
next item, we're gonna go to item 6A. Consider approval of resolution calling the May 3rd, 2025 general election of city council members for the Northeast Ward, Northwest Ward, and mayor at large in the city of Nacogdoches. All this is approval of a resolution, so do I have
I move that we approve the resolution
I
as
second.
outlined in 6A.
have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, next item, 6B. I think it was on January the 15th. We do this twice a year. We have interviews for certain boards that help us with different things like parks, cemeteries, et cetera. This year, I'm going to go through all of them and read the names that were selected to be on or term on each board, and I'll tell you how long the term is. Okay, for the Airport Advisory Board, 2-year terms, John Hughes, Kelly Radziger, and Jason Rena. The Building Standards Commission, which is 2 years, is Nathan Walker and Harrison Harmario as regular member. The Health Code Advisory Board, which is a 3-year term, is Karen Allen, Wendy Blunt, and Jennifer Bryant. Industrial Development Authority Board, 3-year term, Scott Boyer, Wes McKnight, and Clay Patrick. Nacogdoches Cemetery Board, 2-year terms, Perky Beisel and Raymond Berry. Main Street Advisory Board, 3-year terms, Brett Arant, Brandy Cartwright, C.C. Kahn, Kelly Davis, Emily Dodson, and Aaron Wyndham. Okay, that's it. We'll go.
I move that we
Yeah, we have to
approve
have
the
approval.
January boards and commission appointments as outlined.
Second.
A motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. There you go, Rhonda. Next item is consider approval of a contract by and between the City of Nacogdoches and KSA Engineers for professional engineering services for storm drainage improvement projects in a not-to-exceed amount of $538,000. Mr. Opperman.
Yes, sir. Mayor, City Council, Case Opperman, Director of Public Works and City Engineer. We've actually got twin items of a sort here for items 6C and 6D, both related to professional engineering services for the storm drainage improvement projects, which were funded by the voter-approved bonds in November of 2023. So this first item is for the contract with KSA Engineers. You'll remember that on October 15th of last year, y'all approved selection of KSA Engineers and 215 Consulting for design of these 16 or so locations for storm drain improvements. I'm sorry, Rhonda, thank you. Yeah, KSA, okay. And so since that time, we've worked through scoping with these two firms for these locations, kind of identified our preliminary thoughts on solutions for these issues, and have gotten proposals from both of them. We've done our best to kind of allocate these projects to each of them based on what time frame we feel will kind of get them all done close to the same time. So what we didn't want to have was for one of the firms to get done with design on their projects, say, 6 months from now, and the other firm to get done a year and a half from now. Just, wanted to keep it kind of relatively close to the same time so we could get all these projects on the street for construction as soon as we could. So that was kind of the intent of kind of divvying up these projects, and so we sent both of these firms back to the board to kind of put together their proposal, and this is what we've got from them. So for KSA, they are going to provide engineering design, bidding, and construction phase services, as well as part-time representative project or part-time resident project representative. If I can get my tang untangled here. Buckingham Drive and Tudor Drive is one location. Oak Creek Drive, there's two locations for that street. One coming down from Mystic Lane, and then one on the eastern end where we need some additional storm drain infrastructure heading east to the creek there. Stewart Street and Sweet Gum Street, there's not a string of pipe anywhere on those streets, and it floods frequently. And so we're going to basically, hopefully, build out a storm drain network on that street as well. Hilltop Street, it's actually just to the south of Hilltop Street in that lot there. There's a pipe that discharges under that lot that has done some erosion damage, and so we're going to pipe that and get it out to Shawnee. Lady Jennifer Drive, another street that doesn't have any drainage on it hardly. So we need to install some piping inlets on that street to get water off of there. It's overtopping the curb at the low point there and getting into the property. And then Bostwick Street, there's an existing pipe there that's just deteriorated and needs to be replaced. So that's what KSA is going to work on for us. We plan to have a neighborhood meeting for residents on this, on all these projects coming up, just to kind of give information, preliminary design ideas, and just to present kind of what the ideas are for these areas so that the residents can be informed as to what the plan is and the process moving forward. So that will be at a date to be determined, and like I said, that's for the KSA and the 215 storm drainage projects. Did I go too fast?
Any questions?
Um,
I'm
So
sorry. I thought you were through.
Sorry, I'll go quick. I'll go faster. We do have budget available from the tranche 1 of the bond funds that we pulled last May, and actually, I'm happy to say that the combined amount for these two firms is actually under budget. So by close to 200 grand. So that'll get us at least one more line in the ground, hopefully. So that's the kind of savings we're talking about. So we're very pleased with that. Now, any questions from the council if there's no public comment?
Brandy, you have anything? Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract by and between the City of Nacogdoches and KSA Engineers for professional engineering services for storm drainage improvement projects not to exceed $538,300.
Second. Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries
Aye.
unanimously. 6D, we'll go ahead and do it too. I think we just talked about it, but consider approval of a contract by and between the City of Nacogdoches and 215 Consulting for professional engineering services for storm drainage improvement projects in a not-to-exceed amount of $465,990.
Mayor, City Council, Case Opperman, Director of Public Works and City Engineer. I will spare you the description of each of these. Suffice it to say, erosion damage, property damage, street damage on all these locations. And so these are the project areas that 215 is going to work on for us. The only one that's not an actual project is Old Tyler Road near the railroad track. We're needing them to do just kind of a preliminary engineering study to figure out what the issue is there, because there's a lot of flooding. It's going to be creek related because Bonita Creek's right there, but just trying to figure out what the actual issues are and where we might need to go from there. So no actual project on that. It's just an engineering study, but 215 is going to do that for us. Again, a neighborhood meeting for these. I apologize. I had a map that showed all these areas as well as some of the storm drainage projects that we actually have ongoing and previously completed in the recent past, but that doesn't seem to have gotten on here, so I do apologize for that. Wanted to have y'all a visual kind of to look at for all these areas, but again, $465,990 for 215's 10 locations or so, and again from the tranche 1 bond funds. And again, one more time, we're under budget with both contract. So happy to answer any questions.
It's great to see us moving forward on all these.
Well, you know, staff has been working on it, our consultants have been working on it, and the public doesn't see that. So
Huge effort.
we understand, you know, the questions that arise. You know, we passed this bond, where's the stuff? Well, the stuff is coming. It just takes a lot of time to get the stuff designed so we can build it. So appreciate everybody's patience and the support of the community and the council for these projects.
And I would just like to add that you all are doing this work in-house, and we're not hiring, you know, more people to oversee. I think that, did you want to say something, Mr. Beverland? You look,
Well, I mean, College Station wasn't built in a day, so it takes these Aggies a little while to get going, so that's all, I'll leave it at that.
it's great, it's great. Sure appreciate it. So, you want a motion? Or did you?
Brandy, do you have anything to? Okay. Alrighty. Check that one.
Mayor,
Sorry?
Chad, I forget you're
I
there.
was just gonna say, can we, Case, could you put that map, maybe, could you share it with the council and maybe get it in the Friday update this week?
Yeah, we'll put it in the Friday update, and we've also been updating the CIP website for these bond projects, so we'll get it up there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Ready?
Yep.
I move that we approve the contract outlined in item 6D.
Second.
Bunch of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we've already done 6E. We'll move to 6F. Consider approval of proposed updates to the ordinance of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, amending Chapter 106 Utilities, Article 8, Extension of Water and Sanitary Sewer Systems of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, providing a severability clause, providing a continuation clause, providing a repeal clause, and providing an effective date. Director of Public Works, Mr. Drager.
Sorry about that title. I know it's long. Mayor, City Council, Case Opperman, Director of Public Works and City Engineer. I thought I might have had a breather there for a second, but I forgot that Al was between my two items, so. I'll make this as concise as I can. You're well aware that we have this ordinance for utility developer agreements for utility extensions for water and sewer in Chapter 106 of our code. It's been in place for about 20 years, and last year we had two different developer agreements, and then one the year before that. Since 2023, we've installed about 700 feet of sewer and about 250 feet of water under these developer agreements. So total outlay from the city was about $250,000. So utility fund does have a budget of $250,000 per year in water and in sewer. So both of them combined about $500,000. We do anticipate getting more and more frequent requests for utilizing this option from developers, with the expansion that's going on with SFA and just the community in general. We do anticipate more of these requests. So we wanted to clarify some things because the existing ordinance is a little confusing in ways. Mainly needed some clarifications regarding what is eligible. And so the wording was a little fuzzy on if a developer could request more than one type of utility in an agreement. And so what we wanted to do was just clarify that an agreement could be for water or for sewer or for a combination of water and sewer up to a total linear footage of 100 feet for a single-family residential lot or 500 feet for a residential subdivision, which is 2 or more lots, multifamily, non-residential lots such as commercial, industrial. And so, so just to be clear, you can do 100 feet of water for a single-family residence, you could do 100 foot of sewer, or you could do, say, 70 feet of water and 30 feet of sewer, but you can't do more than that and get reimbursed for it. So you're welcome to extend it further, but we're only going to reimburse you for that total footage of 100 or 500 for non-residential or multifamily type things. So the other clarification in this ordinance is that this is only for properties within the city limits. Now, there is a stipulation that we've added that agreements could include a provision for voluntary annexation. So if you are currently outside the city limits, but you're trying to extend a water line to your house or your business, you can do that, but you're gonna have to, part of your agreement's gonna be that you're gonna be annexed in. And so that, protects our base. We feel like it protects our funding better. And so that is one addition that you'll see in your red line that should have been included in your packet. So really, those were the main clarifications and additions. So I'm happy to answer any questions after public comment if there is any.
Any discussion?
I just have one thing. So your expectations for more of these requests is actually good news. That means our town's growing, right?
I would consider it good news, yes.
That's what I wanted to know. That's great.
Jay, do you have anything? I forgot about you over there. You're little. Yeah, Brandy, I was gonna get to you. I was not ignoring you. Come on.
I'm sitting in a bad place, you can't see me. Were these changes for this ordinance done by staff or like the ordinance committee? That I know there's a committee that's going over ordinances and stuff. I just wanted some clarification on which people were making these changes.
That's not done by the committee.
No, it's not part of that. It's not a zoning ordinance or anything like that. This is part of the utility chapter. And so we worked with Jerry. He did all the wordsmithing on that. And we met a couple different times just for areas that we knew were points of confusion in the past with consultants. So we tried to address those just with city staff.
And these are services that we don't have to provide. We do not have to reimburse. These are just things that that now are in our toolbox as we grow and as more businesses are coming in. And
yes,
correct.
And that's a good point, Councilwoman. And I should have said that. I think I may have even had a bullet point to that effect. But it is at the council's discretion, and it is as budget funds are available. So council's not obligated. It's not by right, but it is available, and it is definitely at y'all's discretion. So
It's a great tool in our toolbox to
we've
help.
utilized it several times to effect.
And the approach that staff took was to be reasonable, to provide some incentive, but not to get gamed, and to provide clarity.
Thanks.
So,
Great.
Okay. Motion?
Okay. I move that we approve the proposed updates as outlined in item 6F.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item 6G. Consider approval of an ordinance for the electric franchise with Encore Electric Delivery in the city of Nacogdoches. Director of Infrastructure and Development, Mr. Mike New.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This item is a renewal of a long-standing franchise agreement the city has had with Encore Electric. What it does is it establishes franchise fees mutually between the city and Encore. Encore pays these fees to us roughly twice a year, but primarily in July of each year. The city has captured, on average, about $1.5 million from these fees. And what the franchise agreement does is simply allows Encore to operate within our rights-of-way. So state law does require that cities, in effect, charge something for use of our public rights-of-way. This franchise agreement has been in place for quite a while, for more than 20 years for sure. And we're simply extending and renewing the existing agreement for another 20 years. So this current agreement will expire on February 19, 2025, and enclosed is just standard language that Encore provides with many of the cities that they operate with in mutual agreement, and establishes that term of expiration. The way that these fees are calculated is based on a current factor or base factor times the kilowatt hours of service that are provided within our boundaries. It's a pretty standard agreement, and we're simply trying to renew it for another 20 years with Encore. I'll entertain any questions.
It's not a flat fee or fixed? So
It's not fixed. It is
okay,
based
good.
on
Perfect.
volume.
Perfect.
That's correct.
Okay, any other discussion? Randy? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve item G for the electric franchise with Encore Electric Delivery in the city of Nacogdoches.
Second, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Okay, next item. Item 6H, discuss and consider possible action to approve a contract between the city of Nacogdoches and the Goodman Corporation for professional services related to downtown project planning, development, funding, and implementation in the total amount of not to exceed $249,724.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This item is an extension of what council had originally agreed to or authorized staff to negotiate on December 17, 2024. Staff went through an evaluation process to identify a consultant firm that could provide some very specific services related to downtown implementation strategies. This particular contract that we are proposing tonight is for a number of particular items of focus under the scope of services, and I'll list them here. They include potential for development of a downtown parking facility, amenitization of Festival Park, potential development along Bonita Creek waterfront, all again to the south of our area of City Hall, and then review of existing buildings for highest and best use within the downtown core. The scope of this work is within a 6-month time frame. That is the time frame for each of these projects in some capacity to be addressed. I will say that, and we do have representatives from here who will provide some comments here in a minute. All of these tasks and strategic focus items are broken into basically 5 tasks, which is also included in this scope. It's project management coordination, as you would expect, review of each of these strategic projects or items of focus, looking at funding potential, particularly the parking facility is one that's going to be of particular priority within this scope of work, and then planning level project development for amenitization of Festival Park, the review of buildings for highest and best use. There's going to be a lot of reporting, a lot of engagement, some of the things that I'll show you as far as the project schedule. There is, and this will come in the next item for your consideration, proposal to have a stakeholder committee to help facilitate some items of pointed decision-making and provide recommendations and input. City Council will receive 2 updates, one at the 3-month time frame and then one as a final report submission at the 6-month time frame, and then one public meeting a little toward the latter half as Goodman have developed some of their data and put some analysis together for public input and engagement. We're targeting maybe the 4-month time frame for that. These could change depending on a number of different factors, but this is kind of the rough timeline we're going by for now in this proposal. So what are the deliverables? There's a number of them. Not only monthly check-ins, engagement with the stakeholder committee, with council, with staff. They will provide some financial pro formas, they'll provide some order of magnitude cost estimates, and some analysis. There's also some civil work that if they are looking at feasibility of a potential parking facility to our east, to our south, there is some environmental analysis that they will do to determine what's feasible and what potentially could be optimal for this particular area of downtown. All those are particularly part of this scope, and roughly the costs are going to be broken down according to each of those tasks. The Goodman will have to achieve some milestones and provide some of those deliverables as we pay them on a monthly basis. Typically, we have done contracts like these under different forms. This is the particular strategy we're using to provide payment. We are anticipating deliverables at different phases of the project, so we'll continue to update council and the public as we achieve those different milestones. And at this point, I want to step aside. I want to have maybe Rick provide some clarity on the budget as well as introduce our Goodman guests.
So let me start, kind of set the table here. So obviously we had a downtown plan, and don't look at this as the same thing. That's not what this is. What that was COVID era, as you see from actually the resolution, and actually jumping down to the following item. this goes back to 2021, so during COVID. So you had a lot of good people, you had public process, the world changed. It was not adopted. So here we are in 2025. And UT and SFA have that relationship now. It's part of them. Elliott Electric is going to turn the bank building not just to 40,000 but 50,000 square feet. We have an opportunity for a downtown parking facility, potentially. SFA has also, they're doing their master plan, including sports and sports planning. And then we also have really kind of the general buzz, and again, with one of the entities already rehabbing a building, so you're going to have more employment downtown. So there's no good time other than now. This opportunity may not crisscross us. I'm not saying it's once every 300 years, but my guess is if you look at critical timeframes when opportunities presented themselves, I'd say these are 30, 40-year type opportunities, maybe 50 plus in some cases. Meaning, could it be impactful? Could it bring really the life to downtown and still preserve the downtown that Nacogdoches has had and deserves? So let me talk about the team, kind of why and really what their focus is going to be. So there's really, out of the prior plan draft, there's a lot of ideas. There's some good thoughts in there too. But then we have the reality of all those things I've mentioned. And so the focus of this is really an implementation strategy. Taking those things that are the most impactful, the most real, and then laying those out how you would pay for them or how others would pay for them if you partner or if you access grant funds. Now, I've mentioned this the last meeting, and I mentioned it actually back when Goodman worked on our earmark request with Pete Sessions. In a different life, yes, I worked for Goodman 4 or 5 jobs back. I claim I had hair when I worked there, but I'd probably be a stretch. So Barry was I talk about him like he's in the third, he's right here. So Barry was recruited by then Mayor Hoffines in Houston in 72, 3-ish? 4, okay. I was born in 70 in Houston, so I was ahead of you. To run what was the Houston Transportation Department and then ultimately set up what is now known as Houston Metro, including the enabling legislation and going through the vote. You can look at all of the amenities in Galveston that you think of, from the rail trolley to the downtown terminal to seawall improvements. You can look at the Woodlands Waterway, which Barry worked closely with the late George Mitchell on, and his vision. There's a terminal in El Paso, one in Bryan. I'm just naming a few. They used EDA money in Fredericksburg not too long ago. So my preference and how we wrote this was hyper-focus of Goodman really on the terminal. And I'll kind of speak to the committee and why the folks that we're recommending for the Technical Advisory Committee. At the end of the day, the goal is to take the things that can be done that were kind of outlined or supplemented along the way in the last process and move those forward. And move those forward in a way that doesn't impact negatively debt to the city and can really identify partnerships, be they public-public, public-private, or grant or other opportunities. So Barry is here, as is Elizabeth Witten of his team, who'll be PM on this. I don't know if they would like to say anything else, but yes, we will be looking at things like Brazos Transit already runs back there. Could we convert, actually, when I was in Galveston as a city employee, that's when we implemented the rubber tire trolleys. So could that part of the fleet be converted? Could you run a loop to SFA? Could you have D1 sports in some form or fashion, be it baseball, be it soccer? with a shared use garage and fully activate the buildings on this block and in the rest of the downtown, because you've not only studied, but you've built a facility that can handle the peak demand, within reason. Is it 500 spaces? Is it 700? Is it just a one-level deck? That's part of what they're going to do in the demand analysis. I know everybody else wants, and we do. We need to improve north. I've had separate conversations with TxDOT. We need to look at amenitizing with historic style lighting, like we already have the theme downtown, all the way down north. That's going to be a separate scope, because we're going to look at access management. There'll be another planning study. I won't call it a planning study. That'll be a planning study plus an implementation plan. This is an implementation plan. And yes, we can build sidewalks in places where there's demand, but we're going to start with downtown, and we're going to build from there. So it goes back to jobs, commerce, things to do, and pulling SFA and downtown together. Barry?
Mayor, council, distinguished guests. I'm very excited to be here. I've been doing this with the Goodman Corporation for 45 years. And I was excited today as I was in the beginning of the development of the company, which to date has probably leveraged almost $2 billion for its client base. What's exciting about being here is your city. Now, I've seen a little bit of it today, but the ingredients that you have, which Rick has articulated, are the underpinnings of great success, and we want to help you achieve that success. There's a lot going on right now, a lot of chaos. I don't know if any of you read the chaos theory, but we're living through it right now. There's a lot going on in terms of federal funding and eliminating waste and all of that. I don't think that's going to affect our business and what we do. Yes, we're telling all our clients that have grants, we're going to have to rewrite some sections of those grants because they refer to diversity issues or diversity language, and we'll do what it takes to keep these grants viable. But we've worked in Texas and other states as well for the third largest city in the country down to many cities with less than 2,000 people, and we've been able to be successful in all of them. But what's very exciting about this city, Nacogdoches, is that it's exciting because our company motto is connecting capital to communities, and we will help do that for Nacogdoches, and the bang for the buck will be so significant in terms of the related economic development you'll be able to experience. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing at my young age, and I want you to know that we are going to be committed to everything that we can do to help this city, and we're looking forward to seeing it evolve. So.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick, I'm sorry.
And let me add this. So on the budget, I have talked to some of our, and I'll get into some of our potential partners when we also get into the committee. And there are some other potential capital partners out there that care about this place, that have ties to this place, or ties to this side of the Brazos, or all of the above. And we may be able to drag in, my hope is about half of the funds actually drug in from either foundation side or private side. We've already, I'm going to be very, I'm kind of careful who I hire, when I hire. So even if we did a mid-year hire of the chief of staff, then, we're already about halfway there. So about 100,000. Mike's identified another 25, and that's if we don't go gangbusters later in the year on sales tax. So I think that I'm not worried about the funding piece. I've got, I guess, from 3 of them, 2 of which also have foundations, have already mentioned. We would very much like to participate in this. Their big participation, however, would likely be on the back end of this. So that's part of bringing those players to the table, because at the end of the day, we're going to ask them to possibly write much larger checks to make this happen on behalf of the city for everyone.
Excuse me, Barry, would you introduce your project manager, please? She can stand up. Yeah, please.
Elizabeth is in charge of our capital development projects and grants, and is doing a great job, so much so that she's managing an actual redevelopment authority in Houston, right? Which one?
Correct. So, hi everyone, Elizabeth Witten with the Goodman Corporation. I'm our funding pursuits lead at the company. And one of the other things that I do is manage East Downtown in the area of Houston, where the soccer stadium is. Lots of redevelopment happening in that area as it transitions from industrial to more mixed use. So I could see a lot of bones similar to that here as I was going around Nacogdoches. And if the contract is approved, I will be the project manager here. So happy to answer any questions you guys have on the scope or anything like that. And I look forward to working with you over the next 6 months and in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Any discussion, or do you want me to go to the audience first? You through, Mike?
We're ready for questions, council, if you have them.
Okay. You go to the audience first?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay, let's see. Let me, Brandy, you have any questions? I know, Ann, I'm getting to you. Hang on just a minute.
Brandy Cartwright, 2806 North Pecan Street. Actually, I just wanted to say that I was on the downtown committee for the master plan, and one of the missing things from that plan was an implementation component. So I am very excited to see that implementation is going to be the focus of this one. I am curious about whether bond funds like the sidewalks will be some of the funds utilized to get, because I know you have to spend some money to get federal funds and stuff. And so I was curious if bond funds will be used for that, or are we looking at non-bond funds or a combination of both?
Rick can answer that.
And Randy, in a different life, yes, I used to work on leverage. I used to have to get on airplanes to go to DC for Barry and the client base back in when I had hair. Let's just keep that rumor going. So our goal with this, so let's just take this as an example. Let's say there's a ground lease for a large piece of property that's donated. That alone could be match for not only maybe a parking deck, but also some of the sidewalk and other infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure, or even amenitizing. I'm not saying we can do the Woodlands Waterway. I know it sounds like I'm taking everything I've ever done since birth and tying them all together, or things, from HGAC to Galveston to Goodman to Leander to everything, but that's what I actually am trying to do. And we may find that we can actually overmatch. And that, in a perfect world, that will be what we're going to try to achieve. The goal will be not that at the end of the day that we might have something in here we need to bond. And the reason I say that, let's say going through this process and as we're looking at the highest and best use of all the buildings, let's say we discover a capacity issue. And so, end of the day, we have another water or sewer line improvement that wasn't foreseen. That could be one. It doesn't mean we couldn't go after CDBG money, but it may become a time versus opportunity when others need to go to market. And so those decisions, that's going to be kind of the big picture pro forma that Goodman's also going to look at, as well as what other silos of federal or state funds we might be able to go after. Another thing I'll add is where there's an opportunity, there's something called pre-award authority. And under an FTA, meaning Federal Transit Administration parlance, that was known as a letter of no prejudice. In those cases, if you have a capital partner, let's say, just theoretically, like the Woodlands was done with George Mitchell, he paid up front, and then what was grant eligible that went into the waterway and many of those amenities that you all see when you go down to the Woodlands, there was reimbursement on the back end. So if those opportunities exist, we'll be looking at that as well. Or they will, because I only have so much range, which is why they're here.
But relative to the question about bond funds, we will, depending on how the strategy evolves, do our best to leverage.
And for folks that may be listening or for the video, I'll expand on that. Barry had said that we'll do our best to leverage as many funds as we can to minimize the burden on the taxpayer. That's a primary goal of this effort. We want actual items we can bring to the council to spur downtown development that will then catalyze many of the other things that were represented in our previous data collected as part of those vision plans that were produced. So
I think we're already leveraging some of our funds on the airport, aren't we?
we do have federal funds that are being utilized right
Yes.
now for the airport. That's
But
correct.
as an example, there's sidewalk funds in the bonds. And I think what Brandy's referring to is, could that be part, it could be potentially part of that leverage as well. So, correct.
There's a number of ways to kind of tackle the issue once we've identified what's actionable.
Okay, Ann, you're just chomping at the bits, so come on up here. Okay, well. Okay.
Like Brandy, I was on the downtown committee. My name is, let me get up.
Mm.
My name is Ann Keenan, and I live at 609 East Hospital Street. Okay. I'll talk loud, just in case, so anybody.
You'll be picked up by this.
All right. And so like Brandy, I was on the downtown committee, the original committee, and so I live downtown. I always want to come up and say something about downtown. So I love hearing the plans. I'm so glad that we're getting some help with, I want to see Kathleen over here because she's grinning at me, with getting it project ready, with getting the funding, with doing the technical stuff. Because my little committee, we did not do a lot of technical things, I have to admit. The question I had, what we did do a lot of on that original committee was have meetings with community members. Remember, we did a lot of that. I don't know how much of that actually made it into the plan, but it was there. And I was glad to see on Mike's chart that there's a couple of community meetings. And I know the technical committee will be open meetings, so we can always go to those, and we can always call our council people if we have suggestions or questions. So I just wanted to appreciate that and make sure and see if there's other ways for anyone in the public to have input, or for either the committee or the company to just, our communication guy, to spread out and let the community know we're doing this, because you see it all the time on Facebook. Oh, this town's just run by the good old boys. Oh, they're going to do what they're going to do. Oh, the city doesn't want anything to grow. You hear it all the time, no matter what y'all do, and even if it's not true. So the more we can get the word out that we're doing this, and whatever you say is something we want to hear about, that would probably be helpful as far as getting community buy-in and not having people think those things about what we end up with, but people to have some ownership of it. So that was all I really wanted to say. Thank you guys so much. Sounded really good.
Okay, Mr. White. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Okay, now, we can discuss it.
So I have a few points I'd like to make, just because people have been calling me and asking me questions. And the first one is that items 4 and 5, the tasks that you're completing, are project development, funding infrastructure, and preparing and submitting 2 grant applications. And that is over half of the budget for this. That's $135,000. And that is a huge thing for our community, that we are getting the implementation, and then 2 grant proposals that, and I'm sure the Goodman Corporation is guaranteeing that we're going to receive those grants. So really appreciate that. And so I wanted to make that point. The second point I wanted to make is that I believe one of the things that I've been impressed with the Goodman Corporation is the experience in rural transportation funding. And I know you didn't say much about that, but that really is applicable to our community. I don't know if you wanted to say more or, but
In 2021, the Congress passed the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It's a little bit, probably a little different than that, but which had incredible amount of money for all kinds of things. And there was a lot of emphasis on rural communities, broadband, safety. And so we do a lot of work for rural communities, and the problems are different in rural communities in terms of health, welfare, safety, mobility, for example. And so for a city that's actually growing, as I hear, I don't look at your city as necessarily rural, but a blend. I mean, you're growing. You're not to the point where you have you're getting classified, but you know, under the census, the definition of what's rural and urban is changing constantly. So, but we're going to use our experience that we've gained in working with rural areas to inform what we're going to do for you. And I think the comment that was made about communication and the community, you know, we have 6 months to do a lot of work, not a lot of time, but there are things that can be done to more effectively help us communicate, us meaning all of us here. We could create a web page, and the community could be informed about its existence and get up-to-date information by just going to that website. You know, Nacogdoches Downtown Reimagined, or whatever it might be. So we can do things like that.
So let me throw one thing in. One reason we didn't want to totally go back and reinvent the wheel on all of we did want to have another public meeting at the rec center, but because we have a fairly tight window with some of the opportunities that are right here, from federal funding calls to, we don't want to see that property just to our east, that potential partner say, hey, it's not available, I'm just going to resurface it. So we've got a fairly tight window. We want to take as much as we can from the prior input and then hyper-focus on the things that are, this is kind of a quick due diligence and site selection and costing, and then go.
Yeah.
Not to oversimplify it.
Yeah, and I haven't heard too much discussion about Bonita Creek. But my experience has been that water is like, we have water. Yeah, it's golden. And if we can do anything to tie that creek into redevelopment and make it a fun tourist type spot, we will do it. And so it may not be in the 6 months that we're concentrating on, but we've done a lot of water type things, and it can really do a lot to enhance downtown.
So I just have one other point that I wanted to make, and that's that I believe our city is very fortunate to have both Mr. Beverland and Mr. New, who have experience in this and who have the vision to get this kind of thing done. So I just wanted to acknowledge that that's part of the reason we're at this venture right here at this point, that we can capitalize on it. So.
I just echo what Kathleen said, and also we're not throwing all the work out that the committee did before. We're taking that and now we're putting it in a concise implementation plan in 2025. And I wish I wasn't here, but I wish we had 2000. When did we do that, Kathleen? Or when did y'all do that last plan? I wish we had that.
2022.
Yeah, I wish we had that to do over again, and
Oh.
we'd known Mr. Goodman. I mean, that was just an absolute total waste. But anyway, we're here now, and we're glad you're here, and you're project manager. So, thank you very much. Chad, you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I don't ever want to take for granted the amount of money that we spend on these sorts of things. This I see nearly $250,000 as an investment into our community, and I see the return on that investment. As Mr. Goodman said, we stand to see significant gains because of the work that they're going to do along with our staff and members of our community. So I'm really excited that we're getting to do this and that we have an implementation strategy that I think we can all be proud of.
Yes, Mr. Goodman, you said that we can get to where we need to be from here. You believe that we can do this?
Yeah, I believe that it's not just this 6 months that'll get you there. It's the years that come after it. Because what I've experienced is that once you are successful in getting 1 or 2 projects off the ground, that catalyzes stuff for the next. There's a reason that my company has been working at the Woodlands for over 40 years, Galveston for over 30 years, Conroe for 20 years, because it's a process. And success in getting stuff implemented leads to more success. And it takes, but I will say this, you have to have great leadership locally. You can have a lot of abundant opportunities in terms of funding availability, and we have more now than in many, many years, but you can have lousy leadership that doesn't know how to take advantage of it. And you can have, by the same token, not so great times economically, but great leadership. But when you can bring both things together, that's when you can make things happen. So that's why I see a lot of positive future in terms of what we do, connecting capital with communities, making those communities better, more vibrant, and that's what we pledge to help you do.
That's what I was getting at. We're looking at a situation where it was money spent before, and now we're spending money again. So I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just trying to make sure that the money that we are putting out will get us to the place where we desire to be.
Now, as Mr. Beverland has said, you've spent money before, but it's not going to be wasted. Whatever that was done, the sentiments of the public in meetings that were held, we will take all of that to better inform ourselves to how to be successful for you. There's no city that I've ever been to that doesn't have a stack of plans where nothing's happened out of them. It just is the nature of what you do. You're trying to help your city be a better place. You hire consultants to help you do that. And that's all you can do. You can research and research, but we happen to be practitioners on how to take a lot of those ideas and turn them into reality. And one of the reasons is that you get to some cities and their plans are they had some companies come in and do a plan for the future, a future vision, and they interviewed all of you and a lot of the public, and what came out of that is a $250 million plan, when if you looked at the economics of the city, the actual finances, how much is leverage in terms of bonds that you've issued? What can we expect to come in the future in terms of availability of federal and state funds? And you find, well, you might be able to get 40 million over the next 10 years, but not 250 million. And that's a mistake that many cities make. The first thing you do is you discern with real data, what is your capacity to leverage? And then once you know that, you build from there. And the other factor that comes into it is private sector. If you have a lot of energy going with the private sector, they can multiply those opportunities. So that's why it's exciting for me to be here. From the very first meetings that we had with some of the movers and shakers downtown, I could tell that, as Rick said, this is the time.
Yeah, let me add to what Barry was saying, that in so many of these funding opportunities, a lot of them are quick strike. And so you want to have the information ready to go when someone says, hey, I think I have an opportunity available to you. Do you have a project for me? And so this scope, and especially in task 4, is going to come up with what are these common items that you typically see in a funding application. And so we have an understanding of kind of what are those items. And for each of these projects, we're going to be building out what that information is. So when something comes available, we can quickly strike at it. And so that's what's coming out, notably of task 4. And then task 5 with the 2 grant applications. Once an opportunity is available, especially during the 6-month window, we want to act on it. And so that is where we'll use the information coming out of task 3 and task 4, if it's the parking piece, and strike at that for the funding piece.
And what we've experienced, excuse me, Elizabeth, is that more often than not, during the course of the study, those opportunities come up, and we leap on them, submit applications, and get funded even before the study's been completed. I know of one opportunity that's going to come up, I think, unless Congress totally implodes, will be the next call for community project funding through Congressman Sessions' office. So we know that there will be multiple opportunities for at least the next 3 to 5 years, as long as the infrastructure money lasts. And we're going to take every opportunity we can to go after those.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And Blaine, I want to add one thing to it. One thing that's a little different, this is kind of a Blaine and discussion. So you have SFA that's saying, okay, how do we do this? Where are we going to put everything? Spending money. And by the way, they're going to lend their space planners to the effort. That's a pro bono loan of them, probably to an extent. Then we have, y'all did the planning process, but it was, okay, at the end, it was, okay, where do we go from here? Then you've got the Bright Foundation owns the building adjacent to us, but it doesn't have adequate parking. And their question is, where do we go from here? How do we, but they also have, again, about $35 million in the foundation. And then you have Mr. Elliott, Elliott Electric. Elliott did $1 billion last year. He's going to move 200 full-time jobs downtown. And he's saying, where do we go from here? And he's got property. All of this is aligning right now. So I think one of the differences is right now, and by the way, Mr. Elliott's foundation also has a 90-something million, approaching 100 million in it. So you have 2 foundations. You have a large capital partner, other potential large capital partners. You have funding opportunities from the feds. And you had a community that said, we want this stuff, but we need to kind of find the way. This is probably the one opportunity to jump off, do it, but spend the money towards really the result. At the end of the day, this is going to be a goal-oriented effort, period. Not the what ifs. This is to answer the question. Where do we go from here?
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion then.
I got stuff to say.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I love it because you listed concrete projects that are going to get done and going to get started now. So we're finally getting off the block. The other thing that I keyed off of was partnership, because you have to have a stake in this town. And you have people out there ready to have a stake in this town, just like the community that came together to do those committees. You also have people like Mr. Elliott and the Bright Foundation that are ready to partner with our city to make it incredible. And I love it that we're not doing like we're starting out with the heart of the city and spreading out from there. That way it's focused. that money, we know where it's going, and I think this is incredible. And I say, finally, thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm done.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I want to make a motion. I'm fired up. I move that we approve possible action to approve a contract between the City of Nacogdoches and the Goodman Corporation for professional services related to downtown project planning, development, funding, and implementation in the total amount.
Do I have a second? A second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, last item, item 6I, discuss and consider possible action to adopt a resolution appointing an ad hoc downtown technical advisory committee to advise the city of Nacogdoches on downtown project planning, development, funding, and implementation. Mr. Mike.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This item is somewhat of a continuation of the previous item where we are asking Council to adopt by resolution the formation of an ad hoc technical advisory committee to provide input on the downtown implementation strategy and scope that Goodman will be spearheading on our behalf, but with our participation. So what does it include? So what this committee's focus will be is providing input specific to the tasks that Goodman has been asked to provide under the contract that we have negotiated and Council has just approved. There are 6 members recommended. It is in the exhibit of the resolution document. And these individuals have a firm invested interest in seeing one or more of these proposed strategic tasks accomplished and funded, and their input is especially valuable for this particular purpose. Their terms under this ad hoc committee and this resolution would be simply for the timeline of the consultant's work. They'll be working directly in just about every month, at least once a month, as determined, based on the consultant's needs and for input and information that we can provide on their behalf as well, just to make sure that we're engaged with this particular group to ensure all of these tasks are accomplished under Goodman's term, and we have that necessary public input that we're seeking. Other than that, the committee members, I'll let Rick speak to some of those, and we'll seek any questions you may have about the committee.
And of course, they're all better looking and smarter than me, which is why they're on it. But in all seriousness, we've got 2 folks. We've got Greg Williams, who was vice chair of the prior committee, and Susie Patterson, who owns the brewery. And we think that, and obviously, we're trying to bring the focus down. And obviously, there's also overlap with the Bright Foundation with Greg. We've got Kurt Sutton, who's served in various capacities, but is also on the Bright Foundation. So you can see I'm kind of leaning on people with checkbooks to help the city. I'm just going to flat out say it. We've got Michael McBroom, Athletic Director, who's agreed to serve as well. We think that's critical. We do not want to look at potential athletics in a vacuum. If there's a way to pull Nacogdoches and SFA together, in my heart, I believe it's making things fun, making downtown and SFA have that nexus. So whether it is D1 baseball, periodic concerts even, back in the day, everybody played NAC. I mean, everybody. So we also like to see that happen in the wintertime over on campus too, indoors. But I think this could be the beginning of that. Like to see the students down in downtown, enjoying downtown, here with their families, and pulling everyone together. And further, even those that didn't go to college or those that have graduated, just going down with their families and friends to a game and fully engaging, having SFA here, which is a huge community leverage piece. And I swear I won't run out and play rugby on the field, Brad.
Yes, you will.
Okay. So blow a whistle, I'll tackle somebody. So we've got with that, but we have, let me run through some of the others. We've got Robert Flores. We all know how sharp Robert is, representing both Elliott Electric and the foundation. We have the esteemed Shannon Conklin in the room, chairman of the P&Z. And I think his sage advice and diplomacy will be great as well. And notice Mike News on there. I will try to minimize my contact with the committee so they can get things done, not hear me talk. But I think it's a very, tried to think about this. Those that really care about this city, that also may be able to help make decisions on the funding side to help the city. And I really don't have anything else to add.
You know, just one thought as far as tying in, you know, this community with SFA. I mean, I went to school at A&M, and that fire station is going to be empty one day because we're going to have a new fire station. I mean, that could be Dixie Chicken too, right over there. You know, I mean, and it would be a great place whenever you have a concert in the park, or when you ever have a soccer game, or whatever ends up down there. You know, yeah, or it could just be Dixie Chicken too every day, you know, whatever. So anyway, we will need a motion or discussion on, and let's see, yes. Okay.
Are the committee meetings going to be open to the public? Are they something we can attend and watch or learn what's being said in them?
Good question, Mayor and Council. These meetings will follow the Open Meetings Act. We haven't determined exact time and location. We'll determine that with the availability of the committee members. They will be open. We'll post agendas of those meetings. If we don't intend on recording them the same way we do council meetings and others, or doing public comments as part of the agenda. However, we will have those committees meeting in a place where the public can access and at least observe the discussion. We'll also post minutes at the result of those meetings and provide updates to the council as you have seen in the scope in those iteration phases. So we do expect to post a lot of that information as well as discussions progress on the website, and then if we establish a web presence, we'll do that.
I hate to refer back to my HGAC days, but yes, even the name is there for a reason. They had several regional working groups that were pencils down, looking at hard details. They would record them, or they would take summary minutes, and the public could attend them. But it was the folks, it might have been the city engineers from half a dozen cities on a subcommittee, how you're going to work out the nitty-gritty details. So we do want to create it's not something you typically would videotape, though, simply for the fact that you're trying to get them in a working environment to really get down into the details so they can come back and provide decision point data or information working with the consultant team. So they'll be critical with that work. And of course, folks can come and sit around the room. And again, probably depending on we're going to look at the best place to have that, so there can be room for some other attendance as well, but they will be posted.
Any other questions? Brad, you got anything? Brad, sorry I missed you. I thought you were through.
I'm good.
You done?
Want a motion?
Need a motion?
Okay.
It's hot in here.
I move that we adopt the resolution as outlined in item 6I.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that concludes our meeting. God bless this great city of Nacogdoches, Texas.